Nobody saw this coming. And I mean nobody. Parker Schnabel has been one of the most predictable miners in Gold Rush history, not because he is boring, but because his strategy has always been so clear, so consistent, so locked in that you always knew exactly what Parker was going to do next. Push harder, move more material, outwork everyone else. That has been Parker's playbook since the day he walked onto a mine site as a teenager and started building what is now one of the most impressive track records this show has ever seen. But something has shifted in Season 16, Episode 20. Something has changed in how Parker is thinking, in what moves he is making, and in the direction his season is suddenly heading. Parker's strategy just took a surprising turn. And before I tell you exactly what that turn is and exactly where it leads, I need you to stay with me until the very end of this video. Because the full picture of what Parker is actually building here, the real strategy underneath the surprising turn, is something that is going to completely change how you watch the rest of Season 16. This is Gold Rush Season 16, Episode 20, Dig Deep, or Cash Out, airing this Friday, April 3rd, 2026. I am Oliver Stone, welcome back to the channel, and today we are going all the way in. Let us get into it. To understand why Parker's strategy taking a surprising turn is such a significant moment in Season 16, you have to understand what Parker's strategy has looked like up until now. Parker Schnabel came into this season the same way he comes into every season, with a target, with a plan, and with the expectation that if his crew executes, and his equipment holds, and the ground gives up what he believes is in it, the numbers will follow. That is the Parker Schnabel formula. It is not complicated. It is not creative. It is disciplined and relentless, and it has worked year after year after year. Parker does not reinvent himself mid-season. Parker does not pivot. Parker does not suddenly change course when things get difficult, because Parker's answer to difficulty has always been the same. Work harder, push more material, find a way through. That is who Parker Schnabel is. That is the strategy that built everything he has. And that is exactly why what happens in Episode 20 is so surprising. Because Parker is not just pushing harder this Friday. Parker is doing something different. Parker is making moves that his previous self would not have made. And the question this episode forces us to ask is why? Why now? Why this turn? And what does it actually mean for where his season goes from here? If you are new here, and this video found you because you love Gold Rush as much as this community does, welcome to the channel. Every single week, Oliver Stone breaks down every episode, every storyline, and every moment that matters in Season 16 before anyone else does. If that sounds like something you want in your life, tap that subscribe button right now, hit the bell, and you will never miss another breakdown. Now let us keep going because this one goes deep. Now let us start peeling back the layers of Parker's surprising strategic turn, because there are multiple pieces to it, and they all connect in a way that is going to make a lot more sense by the time we reach the end of this video. The first piece, and the one that nobody fully anticipated, is Parker going to Las Vegas to sit across from Rick Ness with a game-changing offer on the table. Think about that for a second. Parker Schnabel leaving the mine site in the middle of Season 16, getting on a plane, flying to Las Vegas, and sitting down with a miner who stepped away from Gold Rush to have a conversation that he believes is important enough to do in person rather than over a phone call. That is not the Parker Schnabel formula. That is not push harder and move more material. That is Parker thinking beyond the immediate season. That is Parker operating at a level of strategic thinking that goes beyond this year's gold total and this year's target. And that shift, from season-to-season tactical thinking to long-term operational strategy, is the first signal that something has genuinely changed in how Parker is approaching not just Episode 20, but everything that comes after it. The Vegas meeting with Rick Ness is not a spontaneous decision. Parker did not wake up one morning and decide to fly to Las Vegas on a whim. Parker thought about this. Parker calculated it. Parker weighed what Rick brings against what the trip costs and decided the upside was worth it. And what Parker sees in Rick Ness that makes him worth a cross-country flight in the middle of a mining season is the most interesting question underneath the surface of this entire storyline. Because Rick is not just another experienced miner Parker could have recruited from a dozen different places. Rick Ness is a person whose character was proven not when things were going well, but when things got hard enough to walk away from. Rick stepped away from Gold Rush not because he failed, not because the gold ran out, not because the operation collapsed. Rick stepped away because he was honest enough to recognize that continuing was costing him more than he could afford to pay. And in Parker's world, a world built on performance and results and pushing through every obstacle, a person who knows their own limits and has the self-awareness and courage to act on that knowledge is exactly the kind of person you want building something alongside you. Parker is not offering Rick a job. Parker is offering Rick a role in something bigger. And that distinction is everything when it comes to understanding what Parker's surprising strategic turn is really about. Now let us talk about Rick Ness in that Vegas chair, because his side of this conversation is just as important as Parker's. Rick stepping away from Gold Rush was one of the most human moments this show has ever produced. Not because it was dramatic. Not because it involved broken equipment or missed targets or any of the things Gold Rush normally uses to create tension. It was human because it was honest. Rick looked at what the mining lifestyle was doing to him, and he made the call that most people in his position would never have the courage to make. He stopped. He chose himself over the expectation. He chose honesty over appearance. And every person watching Gold Rush who has ever faced a moment where the right decision for themselves was the one that looked like weakness to everyone else. Every one of those people felt Rick's story in a way that went straight past the television and landed somewhere personal. So Rick sitting in Las Vegas, hearing Parker's offer, is carrying all of that history with him. And the question Rick has to answer in that Vegas hotel room is not just whether Parker's proposition makes business sense. The question is whether Rick is ready. Not physically, not operationally. Rick Ness can run a gold mining operation. That was never in question. The question is whether Rick is in a place where saying yes to this offer is the right decision for him right now. Because stepping away was the right decision at the time he made it. And coming back is only the right decision if it comes from a place of genuine readiness, not from the pressure of a compelling offer or the pull of a life he used to live. That internal battle. Is Rick ready? Is this the right moment? Is this the right move? Is the most important thing happening in the Vegas meeting. And episode 20 is the episode where we start to get the answer. And if you are still here, good. Because I told you at the start of this video that the full picture of what Parker is actually building is something that is going to change how you watch the rest of season 16. And we are getting close to that part. But real quick, if this breakdown is giving you things you are not getting anywhere else, do me a favor and drop a like on this video right now. It takes 1 second, it tells Oliver Stone you want more of this, and it helps this channel reach every Gold Rush fan who needs to find it. Like. Dropped. Good. Now let us get into the part I promised you. Now the second piece of Parker's surprising strategic turn is the one that nobody saw coming because it looks like bad news on the surface. Parker's crew loses a truck. Right in the middle of the season's final stretch. Right when every hour of production counts and there is no time left to absorb a significant equipment loss. Parker's crew loses a truck and the operation takes a direct hit. Material stops moving at the rate it needs to move. The wash plant is running but the flow coming in is compromised. And Parker is not even on site to deal with it because Parker is in Las Vegas sitting across from Rick Ness. 2 crises. 2 locations. 1 Parker. And a season deadline that does not care which crisis he chooses to manage first. But here is where the strategic turn reveals itself in the truck loss storyline too. Because a different version of Parker, the version we have known for most of his Gold Rush career, would have never been in Las Vegas when his crew was dealing with a truck problem at the mine. That version of Parker would have been on site. Eyes on the operation. Hands in the decision-making. That version of Parker would not have trusted his crew to handle a significant equipment loss without him there, Because that version of Parker believed the best way to manage his operation was to be physically present in every important moment. But episode 20 Parker is somewhere else. Episode 20 Parker is in Vegas, making a long-term strategic move and trusting his crew to hold the operation together without him. And that trust, that willingness to not be physically present for every crisis, to believe his team is capable enough to solve problems without his eyes on them. That is the strategic turn. That is the shift. Parker is not just mining gold differently in episode 20. Parker is leading differently. And leadership is the foundation of everything Parker is trying to build beyond this season. Think about what it means for a mining operation when the leader starts making decisions based on long-term vision instead of short-term crisis management. It means the operation is maturing. It means Parker is thinking about what the next 5 years of this look like instead of just what the next 5 days produce. It means the Vegas meeting with Rick and the trust placed in the crew to handle the truck loss without him are not separate events. They are two expressions of the same strategic shift. Parker building towards something bigger than any single season's goal total. Parker investing in people, both Rick as a potential long-term partner and his current crew as a team capable of independent problem-solving instead of just investing in equipment and ground. That is the Parker Schnabel of episode 20. And it is a version of Parker that season 16 has been building toward without most people realizing it until right now. Now, while Parker's strategy is turning in Vegas and his crew is dealing with the truck back at the mine, Tony Beets is in the Histercut doing something that on the surface looks like the opposite of a strategic turn, but is actually the deepest expression of strategic thinking Gold Rush season. 16 has shown us. Tony is going back into ground he already worked. Back into the Histercut where a full mining operation already ran once. Tony hit 6,600s this season over his 6,500s target. The season is technically won. And Tony went back into the Histercut anyway, because Tony believes there are ounces sitting in that work ground that slipped through the first time. And Tony Beets does not leave gold in the ground, not when the season is going well, not when the target is hit, not when everyone else would call it done and move on. Tony digs deeper, always. That is not stubbornness. That is the strategy of a man who has been reading Yukon ground long enough to know that the first pass rarely gets everything, and the second look often finds what everyone else left behind. The contrast between Tony and Parker in episode 20 is one of the richest things this episode has to offer, and I want you to really sit with it for a moment. Parker's strategy is turning outward, toward people, toward partnerships, toward the long game of building something that outlasts any single season. Tony's strategy is turning inward, deeper into the ground, deeper into the instinct and experience that has always been his greatest asset. Both of them are taking surprising turns in episode 20. Parker's turn is about expanding his vision. Tony's turn is about deepening his commitment. And both of those turns are answering the dig deep or cash out question in their own way. Parker is digging deep into strategy. Tony is digging deep into the ground. And neither of them is cashing out. Not this Friday. Not in episode 20. Not with the season still breathing and gold still in the Yukon. Now let us talk about what hunting missed gold in the Histercut actually demands from Tony and his operation. Because this is not standard mining. Going back into work ground requires Tony to operate at a completely different level of precision and instinct than a normal production day. He is not pushing fresh material through a wash plant and seeing what percentage comes out as gold. He is reading the history of a cut that has already been processed and figuring out where the concentrations are that did not make it through the first time. That means understanding how gold moves through material, where it settles based on the weight and density differences between gold and gravel, and how the specific geology of the Histercut affects where missed gold is most likely to be sitting. Tony Beets as a gold detective, not just a miner. A man applying everything he has learned in decades of Yukon mining to find what an entire operation already went over and did not catch. If Tony finds a significant pocket in the Histercut this Friday, it will be one of the defining Tony Beets moments of season 16. Because it will prove that experience and instinct can find gold that equipment and production capacity alone will never reach. And the Dig Deep or Cash Out title sits perfectly over Tony's Hestercut storyline in a way that makes the episode title feel almost personally directed at him. Dig Deep or Cash Out. Tony already hit his number. Tony could cash out. Nobody would blame him. But Tony is digging deeper into worked ground looking for what he missed. And that choice, voluntary, unpressured, made purely from the refusal to leave gold behind, is the most Tony Beets thing season 16 has shown us. When you sit down this Friday, April 3rd here, is exactly what Oliver Stone wants you watching for across every single storyline in episode 20. First and most importantly, watch Parker in the Vegas meeting from the moment he starts making his case to Rick. Do not just listen to what Parker is offering. Watch how Parker presents it. Watch whether Parker is selling Rick on a business proposition or appealing to something deeper, to Rick's identity as a miner, to his history in the Yukon, to what stepping back into this world could mean for both of them. Because the way Parker makes the offer tells you just as much about what he is building as the offer itself. Parker operating from pure business logic looks one way. Parker operating from a genuine belief in what Rick Ness represents looks completely different. Watch which version of Parker is in that Vegas chair. Second, watch Rick's face the moment the offer lands. Not after. Not during Parker's pitch. The exact moment the offer is on the table and Rick is processing it. That split second before Rick makes any decision about how to respond is the most honest moment in this entire episode. Whatever is behind Rick's eyes in that fraction of a second tells you everything about where Rick actually is, and whether Parker's surprising strategic turn is about to get a yes or a no. Third, watch Parker's crew handle the truck loss without Parker there. This is the test of everything Parker has built in his operation below the level of his own presence. Who steps up when the boss is gone and something breaks? Who makes the call? Who holds the team together? That person, whoever emerges as the leader in that moment, is the most important member of Parker's crew in episode 20 and potentially the most important person in Parker's operation going forward if Parker's strategy continues to shift toward trusting his team over being physically present for every decision. Fourth, watch Tony read the Hestercut. Watch where he positions his equipment, how he talks to his crew about what he is looking for, and what his instinct tells him about where the missed gold is. Then watch what the ground actually gives back. Because the gap between what Tony believes is in that cut and what the cut actually produces is the story of Tony's Hestercut gamble. Tony right is one of the great Tony Beets moments. Tony wrong is one of the rare moments where the Yukon beats the most experienced miner on the show. Either way, it is worth your full attention. And fifth, watch the very end of this episode. The final scene of episode 20 is going to set up the season 16 finale in a way that changes everything you think you know about where this season ends. Because Dig Deep or Cash Out promises answers, not cliffhangers. Rick's decision gets made. The truck situation gets resolved. The Hestercut gives up what it has or it does not. And that ending, whatever it shows you, is the bridge between episode 20 and the final stretch of season 16. Do not skip it. Do not turn it off early. The last few minutes of this episode are where the real story lives. And before we land this breakdown, I need you to do 3 things. Like this video right now if this breakdown gave you something you did not have before you clicked play. Share it with one Gold Rush fan who needs to see it before Friday. Just one share, it costs you nothing and it means everything to building this community. And if you are somehow still watching this and you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Every Gold Rush fan on this channel gets the breakdown before the episode, the reaction the night it airs, and the full recap the morning after. That is the full package and it is all free. Subscribe right now, ring that notification bell, and Oliver Stone will see you Friday night with the full episode 20 reaction the moment the episode airs. This is Gold Rush Season 16, Episode 20, Dig Deep or Cash Out, this Friday, April 3rd, 2026. Parker's strategy takes a surprising turn. Rick Ness in Vegas at a crossroads. Tony hunting lost gold in the Hister Cut. Parker's crew solving a crisis without their boss. And a season that is running out of time for everyone still standing in the Yukon. Dig deep or cash out? Every miner in episode 20 is answering that question this Friday. And every answer is going to cost something. Drop in the comments right now. What do you think Parker's surprising strategic turn actually leads to by the end of season 16? Is Parker building a partnership with Rick that goes beyond this season? Is the Vegas meeting the beginning of something that changes Gold Rush going forward? And do you think Tony finds meaningful gold in the Hister Cut, or does the work ground come up short? Give Oliver Stone your best prediction in the comments right now. Let us see who calls it before Friday night. Parker's strategy takes a surprising turn. The turn is real. The stakes are real. And this Friday we find out where it leads. See you then.